All right, guys. I will start sharing. All right, so employee ID mapping. Let's say there's an employee. His name is Bob, or maybe let's do this. Yeah, that's fine. Which so let's say I have a few employees, and these are the employee IDs, and this is the name of that employee. Okay, so let's say I want to have that kind of a mapping. Then I would use something called as a dictionary. Okay? Dictionary means this helps you with looking up a value based on some key. Okay, you're trying to look up. You're trying to look up from using a key, and that helps you have this mapping here. Okay. Okay. So this is called a dictionary. And it's pretty much a key value mapping. And you would use the curly parentheses here, or curly bracket, whatever you want to call. That's a key value pairs, and you'd use the comma to separate between those things. Okay. All right. So if I want to print all of them, I can just do print zip code mapping, and that will print all the elements. Okay. Or if I want to print the number of elements in this, I can just do length. Remember, the length will give you the length of that dictionary and all that, length of list, length of the string and all that. The length can also give you the number of key value pairs in the dictionary. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to run this. Yeah. See, it's a number. 07601 is a number, and it's getting confused because I'm beginning with 0. So I'm going to remove that. All right, you can see at the very end, it prints 3. That means it tells me that there are 3 elements or 3 key value pairs in the dictionary. Okay. So remember, len is a length function that can work for strings, that can work for lists, that can work for dictionaries. And yeah, so it's pretty much, it will give you the number of elements in that particular dictionary. Okay. All right, so what we saw is a list. A list is simply a list of elements. Okay. And if you want to access the last one, you would do -1. Okay. A dictionary is a key value pair. And if you want to access an element, you have to use the corresponding key to look up the value. Okay. So let's say I want to find out the employee whose ID is 1002. Okay. So I can do something like print employee ID mapping and 1002. So that will print the corresponding employee for that identifier. Okay. All right. So it prints which here. Okay. Any questions? Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So that is a dictionary, and this is a list and so on. Okay. Now, let's say I create the list of cities. I forgot to add an element. Okay. So I did a bunch of things, and then I have to add another city in there. Okay? I can do this list of cities dot append. Okay. Append means I'm adding another element there. Okay. So here I can add another element, maybe Washington, DC. Okay. So added another city into that list of cities. Okay. Now if I print list of cities, that will print the new city also. Okay. But when I say append, it's going to always add to the end of that list. Okay. You can see that it added to the end of that list. Okay. But let's say I want to add somewhere in between. Let's say I want to add the second element. Okay. So I can do this. I can do list of cities dot insert. Okay, and then I can give an index. Let's say I want to insert at the second element. That means I have to give the index 1. Remember, it starts from 0. So I'm going to give 1. I can add another city here. Let's say Atlantic City. Okay. All right. So if I run this, let me print it actually. All right. You're going to see that the second element happens to be Atlantic City. Okay. So if you want to add it to the end, you do append. But if you want, if you want to add it somewhere in between, you would say insert, and you would give it to whatever the position you want it, and that will add to that position. Okay. Now here is a small quiz. I want to add, or I want the first element instead of New York. I want to add a new element, a new city called maybe Ohio. Ohio is a state. So let's actually add a new city, something like Miami. Okay, so I have Miami. I want to add that as a first city. So what is the statement that I have to put in my editor so that I can add Miami as the first one? You can put in the chat if you want.
It should be insert 0 in the colon Miami.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, yeah. Insert 0, comma Miami. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, yeah, that's right. So when you say 0, that means that's the first element. Okay. All right. Now let's say I have this, and then I figure out that I don't want San Francisco there. Okay. I just want to remove that. Okay. So you can do list of cities dot remove. Okay. Now the remove function. So oh, okay. By the way, guys, do you care about the recording? Because I'm not saving the recording. After 40 minutes, it's giving me a prompt whether you want to save the previous session, and it looks like I canceled it. But for this session, I'm going to record it. I'm going to save it. The last 2 sessions, I don't think I saved the file. But yeah, that's fine. All right. So let's say I want to remove this city, which is the San Francisco. And all these recordings, I may put it on YouTube somewhere so that you guys can go back and look at it. I'll make it a private link so that only you have access, or I can make it public also. I mean, there's nothing private in here. I'll see. I'll try to put it in a public place so that you guys can go back, look at the code and all that. Okay. All right. So list of cities remove, and I want to remove a value. Okay. So the good thing with Python is that as soon as I put parentheses, it tells me what is the function signature looks like. So you can see that it says remove and a value. Okay, that means I'm going to remove San Francisco. Actually, there's a typo here. Okay, so that will remove the value. Okay, so if I try to print it afterwards, you're going to see that San Francisco is gone. Okay, it's no longer there. Okay, now let's say that I want to remove the second element or first element. I don't know what's the first element. I don't know if it's a New York, San Francisco, or anything, but I just want to remove the second element. Okay, Python has no way to remove that second element. What I'm going to do is kind of a hack kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm going to say list of cities, and I'm going to change that list, existing list. Oh, but before we go there, fine. Yeah, we'll come back to that hack in a minute. Okay, any questions so far? Yeah, if I want to append to the end, I would do append. If I want to do insert a specific element, I would do insert and give the index. If I want to remove a value, I would do remove. Let's say if I want to add multiple values. Okay, so if I want to do list of cities, and I want to add 2 cities or maybe 3 cities, in a single statement. Okay, there is something called as extend. When I do extend, I can give another list. Okay, so I can say Miami, maybe Arlington, Texas. Okay, all right. So I'm adding two values here. Instead of doing append 2 times, I'm actually doing extend with another list. Okay, so when I call this and print it out, all right, so that should print this list. Okay, so you can see the highlighted option here. So it prints Miami and Arlington. That means I have a bunch of values and I want to add all the values to the end. I'm going to do extend. Extend means just take whatever the new elements are there, add it to the end. Okay, so that would be extend. All right, now Python offers something called as slicing. Okay, something called as slicing, slicing, and all that. Okay, what slicing means is list of cities. The syntax is this: you have a start, you have an end, and you have something called as increment. Okay, so let's say I want the first 3 elements. Okay, so I can do 0 to 3 because I want 3 elements, and 1. 1 is increment. Okay, that means it starts from 0 and gives me, it goes all the way until 3, but 3 is not included, it's excluded. Okay, so it goes to 0, 1, and 2, and it will give me those values. Okay, so if I do print, and do that, you're going to see that it prints the first 3 elements. Okay, because I said give me start from 0, give me go all the way to third index, but don't include the 3rd index. Whenever we say end is always excluded. Okay, start is always included. Okay. So this is called slicing, and it increments 1 and goes to the next element and all that. Okay, so this is how it works. This is called slicing, and that's what we get. Okay, so we started from 0. This is 1. This is 2. 3 is not included because it's excluded, and all that. Okay, now let's say I want every alternate number. Okay, so yeah, before I go to every alternate, so every one of these is an optional number. Optional. You don't have to specify one if you don't want to, and if you don't provide that number, there's a default value. Start is always defaults to 0. Okay, end is always the last element. And increment is always 1. Okay, it always increments by 1. Okay, so if I do this print list of cities and I just do this colon. Okay, that means I didn't put anything. I didn't specify start, I didn't specify end, I didn't specify increment. That will print all the elements. Okay, so if I do that, so you're going to see it prints all the elements starting from beginning to the end and all that, because the default value is 0. The default value of end is the last element, so it's going from 0 to the end. Okay, now let's say if I want to print every alternate value. Okay, so I'm going to say print list of cities colon 2. Okay, now I'm saying start from 0 because I didn't specify the default is start is 0, and because I said increment as 2, that means it's going to start from 0, and the next element is going to be 2nd element, the next element is going to be 4th element, and so on. Okay, so if I run this, you're going to see we have New York, and then we went to Hackensack. Atlantic City is missed. Okay, and then we skipped Washington DC and we went to Miami. Okay, so here the increment 2 means that it is start from that number, but increment by 2. Okay, so it goes to that index and it gets you that value and all that. Okay, so this is a slicing operation and it's very useful actually. Okay, so if I want to, let's say, print list of cities, and I want to print in the reverse order. Okay? So I can just do -1. So remember, -1 means it starts from the end. And when I say -1, it starts from the end, goes to the beginning. Okay, so if I print it, and you're going to see that it prints in the reverse order. Okay, it prints Arlington first, Miami, Washington, D.C., Hackensack, and so on. Okay. So if somebody says, hey, can you reverse the list? All you got to do is this colon, -1. Okay, that is going to reverse the list. If you want every alternate number, do colon, 2. Okay. Or if I want to start from the second element, go to the end. Okay, so I can say print list of cities. I can start from second or 1, colon. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to start from second element, go all the way to the end. Okay, so that will give me Atlantic City. Yes, that's correct. So you start from second element and went all the way to the end. Okay. All right. Any questions on the slicing? Or instead of second element, instead of going to the end, I want only go to the fourth element or third element. Okay, so I'm going to say go until there, also the third element. So I'm going to print that. So it's going to print only those values. Okay. Now I want to go from first to fourth, but every alternate element. Okay. So I'm going to put 2 here. 2 is going to print every alternate value here. Okay. So you're going to see starts from the first index, goes towards the fourth, but does not include 4. And it will increment by 2 and it will give me those values. Okay. So this is called a slicing operation. And it's very useful. Okay. And this is also very useful. If you want to reverse a list, you just do colon, -1. Okay. And the same syntax is used for strings also. So I have a string here, which is Miracle Solutions LLC. Okay. I want to reverse that string. Okay. So I'm going to do name colon, -1. Okay. Print. And if I print it out, you should see this. Okay. So that is a reverse of Miracle Solution, CLL and all that. Okay. Now let's say I want to print every alternate character. Okay. Print name colon, 2. Okay. So that's going to print every alternate character. Okay. So that is every alternate character. Okay. I mean, the slicing operation can work for strings, can work for lists. Any container data type, the slicing operation is going to work for you. Okay. All right. Now going back to our one of the previous thing I said, where if you want to remove an element, and if you know the index, you don't know the actual value. Okay. If you know the value, you can call the remove method, and that will remove the element. But let's say I want to remove the second element. Okay. So if I print the list of cities here, okay. What did we get here? List of cities. I'm going to comment this. There's too much trace that came out. All right. So the list of cities is this. Okay. New York, Atlantic City, and all these things. Okay. Now, if I want to remove, let's say, Hackensack from that list, okay, we're going to use a slicing operation. Okay. So we're going to say list of cities equal to list of cities. Now, Hackensack happens to be the third element. That means I want to go from 0 to second element, 0, 1, 2. Okay. I'm going to go to second element plus list of cities. I'm going to go from third element all the way to the end. Okay. Let's just put this. Okay. Okay. So if I do that, and then I print list of cities. Now you can see that the Hackensack is gone from there. Okay. Because what I did is I said, go from beginning towards the second element or the third element. Don't include the third element. And then I said, go from the fourth element That means pretty much I'm removing the third element. Okay. So that's how you remove a given value, or if you want to remove second element, that is what you should be doing it. Okay. So this is kind of like a hack. Python has no option to remove given and index. Okay. But if you want to remove given and index, this is what you should be doing. Okay. Now in the slicing operation, I mentioned that everything is optional. Okay. So if I remove this parenthesis, it is still going to be the same. Okay. That is still works fine. Same thing. Okay. Now, if you're in PyCharm and if you comment, if you highlight, and if you press Control /, it's going to uncomment. If you press Control /, it's going to comment. Okay. So these are some editor shortcuts that might be helpful. Control +/. Okay. So Control / is going to comment, uncomment, and all that. If you're on an Apple MacBook, your options might be different. Go to Edit, and you should see there should be comment, uncomment here. All right, comment with line comment, Control /. Okay, you're going to see that. Okay, so if you press that, I mean, in Mac, your keyboard shortcuts may be different. So if you go to that option, you should see whatever the shortcut is configured for your Mac. Okay. So the shortcuts are important because it helps you write the code much faster. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? All right. No questions. Let's move forward. All right. If I have a dictionary and if I want to, so you guys know how to access individual key value pairs using a square bracket notation. So you put a square bracket and you say, for this value, give me a corresponding value. Okay. Now let's say that I want to remove this value 1002. Let's say that employee is no longer working for my company. I just want to remove that employee. Okay. So I can do employee ID mapping dot remove. Okay. Or is delete. Sorry. This is what you should do. Del, and I should put in 002. Okay. That means we are deleting that entry there. Okay. And let me print that employee ID mapping. Okay. So you're going to see that Rich is no longer working, or Rich is deleted from this employee ID mapping. Okay. So you would say del, and you would do this. Okay. So if you want to add a new employee, you would do this employee ID mapping, and let's say 1004. And whatever the new value you want to name, Dave or David, okay, whatever. Okay, so let me print this one more time. All right, so that will print those values. Okay, so we added a new entry there and all that. Okay, so since Python is type independent, I can play with the types. Okay, so that means I can say employee ID mapping, and let's say that I'm gonna do the reverse mapping, or maybe I have a name here, which is just tell me a name, guys. Sam. Okay, Sam equal to 1005. Okay, so if I run this and print employee ID dictionary, so you're gonna see that the key used to be a number. Okay, so it used to be 1001 Bob, 03 is Jessica, 4 is Dave, but here I flipped out. Here I said the key is a string and the value is a number. Okay, Python doesn't care. Python says Python is type independent. It says, okay, you want to store a string as a key, that's okay, it will take it. Okay, and the corresponding value is 1005. Okay, so you can do that too. You can mix and match if you want. If your use case wants you to do that, that's okay too. Okay? But usually we don't do that. So I'm going to comment that for now. But yeah, if you want to add a new entry, you would put a square bracket and you would assign the corresponding value. Okay. If you want to remove something, you would say delete and the corresponding entry and all that. Okay. Now, similar to extend, we had extend here that adds multiple values. I don't think dictionary has an extend here. Let me try something. Yeah, dictionary doesn't have an extend. But yeah, that is how a dictionary is accessed. Okay, you would do this operation multiple times. Okay, so you would say square bracket the new value and that corresponding value and all that. Okay. Now let's say there is already existing value. Okay, 1001 is Bob. Let's say Bob changed his name to something else. Okay, so let's say that I want to change the name. Employee ID 1001 equal to Bob. Or maybe there was a typo and I want to update that value. Okay, so what this does is if the key is already existing, it will update that value. If the key is not existing, it will add that entry. Okay, this might be clear. Literal. Okay, fine. So if the key is already existing, it would update the value. If the key is not existing, it would insert the value. Okay. So you're going to see we have 1001 as Bob's new name and 1004 as Dave. Okay. Yeah, just to repeat one more time. If the key is existing, it will update. If it's not there, it will insert. Okay. All right, any questions so far? All right, now let's switch some gears. We are going too much into Python. Let's go back here. And we discussed very briefly about different components that are involved there and all that, okay? Now, when you get requirements, there are a couple of tools that are used, okay? So you'll have a meeting with product people, or you might have a meeting with technical architecture designer, or maybe another developer and so on. After the meeting, they will say, okay, you need to work on this and so on, okay? So we keep track of all the work items in a product called as Jira, okay? So Jira is nothing, but it's just a simple ticketing tool, okay? What it does is, okay, let's go to Jira Atlassian. Let me open some public Jira. Okay, perfect. Let's go to this MariaDB is open source database, and they have all the Jira instances. Hopefully, the Jiras are public. All right, the meeting is going to end in 10 minutes. Maybe if it ends, rejoin us. Okay. All right. So this, what you're looking at, is actually a Jira server. Okay. So think of this as a ticketing system. Okay. So when somebody assigns you a work, this is what the ticket is going to look like. Okay. So you're going to see here assigning. That means this is who is going to work on that particular project. Okay? Reporter. Reporter means this is the person who created this work item. Okay. And watchers means there are a couple of people who are watching this. That means if you start working on this item, they will know that you started working. If you finish this, they will know that you finished this item. Okay. So they are interested in following this to see what's happening with this particular work item. Okay. So they have something called as Q3 2022 release merge. We don't need to know the details, but this is the title of the work. Okay. And there are different types here. You can see there's a type is task. Okay, that means it's a new item. It's something like I should say the feature is not existing and you're adding that feature. Okay, it can be a bug fix also. You can see here it's a bug. Okay, so this item, this potential corruption on whatever, you're going to see the type as bug. Okay, so this type, ticket type, means what type of work are you doing? Are you trying to fix an existing software? Are you trying to enhance the software or so on? Okay, so that is the type. Okay, and then you're going to say priority. Priority means is it very important, or is it medium important, or something that nobody cares, and so on. Okay, so this priority tells you how important this work item is. Okay. And in this case, it's a critical because it's a bug. Bug means the software is not working as expected and it's failing, and it's very important for us or for that person to fix it. Okay. And who's working on this? This person, Nikita Malyavan, is working on that. Okay. Now, effects version, that means when was this bug introduced? Okay. Maybe this was introduced in 2021 or so on. So this started, what version did it start and all that. Okay. There's a status here. You're going to see this in progress. That means this person has started working on it. And if you look at the workflow, initially the ticket is open. And from open, you can go to progress. Okay, you can see an arrow here. From progress, you can go to needs feedback, or from progress, you can go to stalled, in review, testing, or closed. You're going to see different arrows. Actually, not. Let me send you this link in the chat so you guys can open it. Okay. All right. So this is how the ticket goes. Initially, it is created. It's an open item. Somebody started working on it. It went to in progress. From in progress, it can go to maybe I need more information, needs feedback. Or maybe from in progress, it can go to testing. That means I already fixed the code and I want somebody else to test it. Or maybe I'm in the testing phase and all that. Okay. So this is how the workflow looks like. Okay. And fixed version. That means you fixed it and it is going out in 10.3, 10.4, or so on. It's going out in that version. Okay. And then this is the important stuff, description. Here you have a small title. It may not indicate much, but the description tells you more details. What is that work item? What are you supposed to do and all that? Okay. That's a description. And then you have something like comments. That means different people can comment saying that, hey, maybe this will help. Maybe whatever the comment it can be. Okay. So those are all comments here. Okay. There are some other things here. This blocks, that means this item is actually blocking another item. Somebody wants to work on something else, but they cannot work on that unless this item is complete. Okay, that means this item is blocking this another ticket. Okay, there's another thing called is blocked by. That means this ticket is blocked or waiting for that item. Okay, in order for me to work on this ticket, this item has to be finished, then I can work on this item. Okay. So going back to our example, you need to have a database table so the service can read from that table. Okay. That means the service is blocked on the database table creation. Okay? So you might have a ticket that you're working on a service that is blocked by the database ticket and so on. Okay? So, but it's pretty much runs from a website. And anytime we say Jira, that's pretty much a ticketing system. And that tells you what is the type of ticket, what are you working, what is the status of that. So if you're a manager or a team lead, it gives them a bigger picture, who is working on what items, and all those things, okay? So there is something called as board, Kanban board. I don't have access to that because it's a public website. They're not letting me access. But if I click on that, that tells you, let's say there are 10 people, it will tell you, give me like a high picture, bigger picture of who is working on what items and all that, okay? But yeah, this is pretty much Jira. So whenever you hear the word Jira, Jira, that pretty much is a ticketing system. And you can see the details about what is the thing that, what are the work that you have to do and all those things. Okay. All right. That is Jira. Any questions on this? All right. No questions. That's good. So many companies use Jira, and this is something not, I mean, this is something you can access from a user interface. It's not something that you need to learn anything. I just want to give you a high level picture that if you go to a meeting and somebody says, I'm going to give you a Jira ticket, or I'm going to give you a Jira, you don't need to be shocked, and you don't need to ask them what is a Jira and all that. But yeah, Jira is pretty much, this is what it looks like. Okay. All right. So that is Jira. And so we have some code here. And once I have the code, let's say you are a developer or a tester, you have written some code here, and you want other people to access your code. Okay. But this file is a local file. It's living on my laptop or my desktop. They cannot access my local thing. Okay. So what we do is every time you create the code, we push it out. Okay. So there is something called as GitHub. GitHub pretty much is a central repository that you can push your code so other people can access and all that. Okay. Let me paste this link here also, github.com. Okay. So let me go to repositories. Let me search for Chrome. Okay. So Chrome is an open source repository. You can look at the source code and all that. Okay. So GitHub is a central repository where the code is pushed out and other people can access the code and all that. Okay. Now this is a public repository. That means you can look at the code. But in most of the companies, you have a github.com that is private. That means within the company, you can access a github.com, that particular GitHub, but you won't be able to access that GitHub from internet. Okay. So when you join a company, they will give you access to github.com, their local github.com, not a public GitHub. And that has a code base and all that. Okay. And that has the code. So let's say I have this code here and I want to get this code. Okay. So I can go to code here. Okay. So there are two options. One is HTTPS, which is a link, or I can use a GitHub CLI. This is a command line. Okay. So I can copy that. And once I copy,